When it comes to video game monsters, few companies can match Capcom when it comes to designing them. Many of their biggest franchises like Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, and Ghosts 'n Goblins are known for their terrifying and iconic monster designs. Today we'll be focusing on one of its lesser known franchises, Darkstalkers. I'm the Nostalgia Gamer, and welcome to How Strong Is. This episode, Jedah Dohma, the Dark Messiah. The world of Darkstalkers is bleak and desolate. Demons constantly roam the earth, terrorizing the humans. However, no place is grimmer than the land of Makai. According to the Genesis of Makai, this realm is composed of the body of God, yet it is filled with millions of demons. The conditions are too brutal for any regular human to live in. The sea reaches over 10,000 degrees Celsius. There are poisonous caves and marshes, and the ocean reaches temperatures of absolute zero. The ones in power are referred to as the Makai nobles. The three high nobles include Belial Ainsland, the first emperor of Makai, Galnan Vashtal, the oldest of the three, and Jedah Dohma, the youngest of the three.
Savior of the demon world, distressed Lord of Death, he goes by many titles, but his mission remains. The rebirth of the corrupt and withering demon world, the cleansing and fusion of all souls into a single pure being. None would be spared his bleeding touch. Such is the will of Jedah Dohma.
As a high noble, Jedah had several servants, one of them being Azam. Azam was talented when it came to using others for his own agenda, so one day he tricked Jedah into absorbing the souls from the gates of Makai. Jedah broke the seals and began to absorb the gates of Makai, but the power was overwhelming and it erased him from existence. Thanks to Jedah's absence, Azam took over Jedah's place as master of the Dohma family and assumed the title of Emperor Azam, where he could rule forever, or so he thought. A century passed, and Jedah awakened from his slumber. Despite being tricked, Jedah did not feel anger, but merely grieved over the sad state of affairs in his dying world, believing he was the only one who could save Makai. To him, the best way to save every soul was to treat them all as equals, to become one with them. If everybody was composed of a single soul, there would never be conflict. But first, Jedah would need a vessel for his proposed ultimate soul, otherwise known as the Shintai. Remembering Azam's betrayal, he flew back to the Dohma castle and extended his hands towards his former servant, whispering only one thing: "Azam, I am sorry, but please lend me your powers. Your soul would become the foundation of Majigan and will help the future of Makai." With his heart full of mercy, he transformed Azam into the Majigan. He then stepped down into this alternate dimension and prepared to trap everybody he could find who possessed a valuable soul. Jedah's fighting style is highly original, as he is one of the few fighting game characters to fight without using punches or kicks. Instead, he relies on his wings and claws when it comes to close quarters combat, as well as weapons and special powers. Jedah is extremely clever and manipulative, and known for being perhaps the most intelligent among the Makai nobles. He always remains cool and collected, even in the face of doom. While Jedah does not carry around any weapons, he does have wings that are detached from his body. He is able to transform it into the shape of his choosing, and his favorite happens to be a scythe. Jedah's design resembles that of a Shinigami, otherwise known as the Japanese god of death. These entities were also known for wielding scythes, but Jedah takes it up to 11. He is able to instantly create new wing scythes and toss them as projectiles, or use his wings as scissors to impale his victims. Generally, his wings extend to around 2 meters in length, giving them immense range even in melee combat. Jedah's greatest asset is definitely his wide arsenal of powers. As mentioned earlier, he was able to regenerate from non-existence. It is stated in Darkstalkers 3 that he can repeatedly come back, and will continue to do so until he fulfills his goal of resetting the universe. His healing factor generally works at an instantaneous rate, as shown in his guard cancel where he cuts off his own head just to counterattack his opponent, spraying them with his blood and growing a new head immediately afterwards. Jedah can spray entire puddles of his blood to use as henchmen, allowing him to team up on his opponents. He can even form constructs out of them like giant hands. Jedah's body is very malleable, allowing him to extend his limbs as far as he desires. If he grabs hold of somebody, he can pump their body full of his blood, which immensely damages and inflates their various body parts before they explode. As shown in Finale Rosso, he can create entire bubbles and pools of his blood to trap his enemies. Not only that, but Jedah can both teleport and open portals, even across dimensions. Combined with his flight, Jedah has great travel options. Jedah's most famous ability is without a doubt his soul manipulation. Jedah has been demonstrated to not only project his soul, but also absorb the souls of millions of demons at once. He has transmuted Azam's soul into an entire dimension, and he can even retain the memories of his victims after absorbing their souls, which also increases his strength. As demonstrated in Provia di Servo, Jedah is able to summon gigantic contracts and slam his victims into them, effectively forcing them to sell their soul to him. Jedah has also displayed the ability to manipulate matter and energy directly. When he found Lilith's disembodied soul and saw potential, he converted her dark energies into a temporary form. Since Lilith has a mass of 54 kilograms and energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, the energy Jedah would need to convert to give Lilith a physical form comes out to around 5 exajoules, which is the equivalent of over 1 gigaton of TNT exploding. This is worth 1,000 megatons of TNT, making Jedah's matter manipulation 20 times as powerful as the Tsar Bomba, the strongest nuclear weapon ever built. If there is anything Jedah has that could rival his soul manipulation, it would definitely be his psychic powers. Jedah's telepathy is so potent, he was capable of mind-screwing Pyron himself, who is essentially a sentient galaxy. In addition, Jedah was able to telepathically communicate with Anakaris by sending his messages 5,000 years in the past. Theoretically, Jedah would be able to mind-screw even the most resistant of telepaths by affecting them in the past when they lack the mental fortitude they currently have, as opposed to trying to affect them in the present. Jedah has demonstrated highly potent telekinesis as well. In the Darkstalkers 3 manga, Jedah was able to casually rotate the entire moon and cover it with blood in the span of a conversation, all from the comforts of his chair in another dimension. While the scene doesn't have a specific time frame, the rotational kinetic energy of the moon is around 80 teratons of TNT equivalent, which he would have needed to overpower in order to rotate it. This is about the same energy released by the Chicxulub asteroid that killed off the dinosaurs. However, this doesn't account for the blood he launched to the moon. In order to telekinetically move the blood to the moon in the span of a single night, its velocity must have been around 12 kilometers per second. The escape velocity of the Earth, on the other hand, is 11 kilometers per second. By getting a volume and mass for the blood, we can determine that the energy Jedah effortlessly released with his hemokinesis comes out to over 15 ninojoules, which is the equivalent of 4 exatons of TNT exploding. This is powerful enough to break over 1/10 of our moon. On top of all that, Jedah has been shown to have extraordinarily powerful reality warping powers. Remember the Majigan that was mentioned earlier? The dimension that Jedah created by transmuting Azam into it? Jedah's Majigan exists beyond the boundaries of space and time. Jedah's dimensional manipulation is so potent, not even Morgan was able to escape his dimension. The same Morgan who effortlessly crosses dimensions on a nightly basis as part of her hobby. Of course, what would his abilities matter if he didn't have the speed to use them in time? The best feat in the series would be Pyron flying to planet Hellstorm in the span of 1/3 of a second in the original game. Since Pyron in his true form was flying across the universe at the speed of light for 200 million years, straight after initially leaving his home planet, all constantly pulling planets into his orbit, we can approximate how far away planet Hellstorm is from Earth. 200 million light years. Since Pyron crossed that distance in 0.32 seconds in his humanoid form on the character select screen, this would make Pyron nearly 20 quadrillion times faster than the speed of light in his mortal form. Even if we assume it took him an entire hour to fly to Hellstorm, that would make Pyron around 2 trillion times faster than the speed of light. Why does this apply to Jedah? Simple. Before the events of Darkstalkers 3, Dimitri managed to defeat Pyron by absorbing his power, and Jedah was able to kill Dimitri after absorbing Pyron's power. Since Jedah could keep up with Dimitri without getting speed blitzed, this gives Jedah massively faster than light combat speed. During Pyron's flight, he also displaced a large amount of the Atlantic Ocean and burned a hole in the Earth. Since Pyron dispersed 1 quintillion liters of water at nearly 300 times the speed of sound and vaporized the water when he pile-drived through the planet, the kinetic energy of Pyron's flight is equivalent to 1 exaton of TNT exploding, but that is far from Pyron's greatest feat. In his Night Warriors ending, Pyron was able to telekinetically move 3 planets into his fingers and use them as rings. By analyzing the speed of his planetary jewelry, we can determine that the relativistic kinetic energy of Pyron's telekinetic pull was worth 3 tenatons of TNT equivalent. For reference, the gravitational binding energy of Van Beesbrook's star is also worth around 3 tenatons of TNT equivalent, meaning that Pyron's feat is energetic enough to destroy small stars. Considering that Pyron boasts he has crushed stars before, this definitely lines up. Again, Jedah managed to defeat Dimitri after he had already absorbed Pyron, meaning that Jedah scales to this feat. Outlier, you say? Think again. In his Darkstalkers 3 ending, Jedah was able to destroy Makai itself. Makai's main landmass alone is hundreds of times greater than the Earth's, and the Sea of Makai extends so far nobody knows where it ends, not even Belial. Therefore, the gravitational binding energy of Makai would be well over 80 ninatons of TNT equivalent. For reference, it takes only 50 ninatons of TNT equivalent to destroy OTS-44, a well-known brown dwarf star. All of this, however, pales in comparison to Jedah's greatest feat. Once again, we take a look at Jedah's Majigan. While we don't know its exact size, it has been shown to contain moons, planets, stars that resemble our sun, and even entire constellations. The smallest constellation we know of, the Southern Cross, stretches over 13,000 light-years across. This is about the size of an average galaxy, and it constitutes only a fraction of Jedah's Majigan. Not only did Jedah create this galaxy-sized dimension, but he constantly maintains it with his existence. In the event Jedah is defeated, his dimension would be destroyed along with him. So in the end, Jedah would have galaxy-level power. Coupled with his massively faster-than-light speed and plethora of hacks abilities, Jedah would rank as a Skyfather-level entity. On that note, it's time for us to analyze how Jedah would rank amongst other fictional universes. In the Bastard universe, Jedah would manage to deal a great amount of damage, as he is able to bypass eternal atoms by destroying them on an astral, spiritual, and physical scale, which is the main obstacle when it comes to facing characters from the series. While he is perhaps weaker and less durable than top tiers, he is still more powerful than the likes of Majin Dark Schneider and the Seraphs, and most likely has a speed advantage over the cast as well. Aside from Darkstalkers, Guilty Gear is widely considered the strongest fighting game series, and for good reason. While Jedah is at least comparable in speed if not faster than the entire Guilty Gear cast, Guilty Gear has a large amount of esoteric abilities of its own, such as being able to convert enemies into data and warping reality. So if the entire verse teamed up on him, they may or may not be able to pull off a win. In terms of sheer power, even the likes of Slayer and Gabriel are only multi-solar system level in comparison to him, so Jedah should have a sheer power advantage over any of the cast. As mentioned earlier, Jedah would be a Skyfather level entity in Marvel. He is easily more powerful and faster than even the Heralds of Galactus, and has an insane variety of broken abilities of his own. While he may not reach the levels of, say, Odin, or the ones who sit above in shadow, he is still above transcendent level beings, and would be above the likes of the Asgardian Destroyer. As Okami is another one of Capcom's most powerful and beloved franchises, it only makes sense to compare Jedah to it. In the Okami universe, Jedah would be on the same general level as Amaterasu after she spun a galaxy with her celestial brush, with comparable attack potency and speed at the least. However, in terms of raw power, he fails to measure up to Yami and Amaterasu, as Yami was capable of destroying multiple constellations with the mere shockwaves of his strikes, which Ami survived the impact of. He may be able to pull off a win with one of his more broken abilities, but otherwise, he wouldn't be able to defeat both of them in a straight-up fight. In the Disgaea universe, Jedah would be well above fodder demons who can wipe out all of the stars in the sky in a short time frame, with comparable power and speed to the likes of Dark Death Evilman, who can consume galaxies in his laser beam within seconds. Once we start getting to the stronger overlords like Zeta and entities such as Gig, his victory becomes less likely, but he still has a large variety of hack skills and survivability to potentially carry him above his weight class by some margin. I hope you enjoyed the video on how strong is Jedah Dohma. Be sure to check out my channel if you'd like to learn more about other characters in the Darkstalkers series or the fascinating history behind Capcom's fighting games. This has been the Nostalgia Gamer. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.